You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers!
Today we're joined by Dr. Jacquelyn Blanton, an advocate for literacy, community engagement, and empowering families through the joy of reading. Her book, It Takes a Village to Raise a Reader, beautifully reminds us that raising strong, confident readers begins with connection, collaboration, and community support. Please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Blanton to the show. Thank you so much, Dr. Blanton, for joining me for this episode of On the Air with Florenza, where we are going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about your newest release, and then we're going to talk about your exceptional movement that's taken place that is so timely. Before we dive into all of that, we are going to toast to a fantastic show.
Yeah.
And fancy glass now. I'm going to ask, because my guests have been sneaking in glasses that they're saying is water, but it's secretly vodka. What's in your glass, Dr. Blanton?
It is water.
I'm going to believe you. And I have a little, where'd my thing go? It is some organic mango lemonade.
Good.
I know my listeners think that there's got to be like 90% vodka in here, but I've been vacationing just a little bit, and I think I got a little excessive. So
that would be me.
So here's cheers to the regular stuff for being excessive. So that's not bad, but I have to admit it would be better with some vodka. So what would people be surprised to know about you, in particular to your journey to literary advocacy?
People would probably be surprised that I am a former All-American track and field girl.
Ooh!
Louisiana State University.
Congratulations. Nice. Now, have you written a book about your journey and as far as being a track star, like a little biography picture book of sorts?
No, I haven't. And only because this book that I'm talking about now wasn't even supposed to be a book. So I never had it in mind to write a book. So, and now that I have all of these ideas now. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can do this. I can do that. So maybe.
Yeah, sweet. It's wonderful how that pump gets primed, and then once it flows, you're just like, oh my gosh, it just won't shut off, right? Whoosh.
Absolutely.
Okay, true or false? True or false? You've ever caught yourself analyzing the narrative arc of a picture book at a grocery store? So now that I know that you've been bitten by this book writing bug, I swear there's no vodka in there. I'm going to say this is false, but parts of it may be true.
False. I've never done it. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure now. I'm gonna go to the store and I might have to, think about that. But I've never done it.
And our last one for this segment, this or that. And this is more like a trick question. Would you prefer phonics or fairy tales?
Phonics.
Yeah.
Phonics. Definitely. Hands down.
Are you surprised at the shift in education in that for my generation, I'm 60, we were birthed into the literary world on phonics, all right? And then we saw this shift to sight words and such, and then more shifts, only now to return to what has worked, proven to work, which is phonics. How has that shift, what's your take on that shift? And where do you think we are educationally in terms of how children are learning to read?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, that was during the reading wars. We're almost the same age, and I can remember the shift
Mhm.
when it was toward the 80s,
Yep.
going toward the 80s, and it was I think it was president one of the presidents, I want to say Bush, that created this the war on reading because the United States was so low, far below the average as far as reading is concerned, and they made this whole big deal.
Yeah.
And then in came that whole language era.
Mm-hmm.
Where people were desperate. They were desperate to try something new, and so whole language was dressed very nicely. It looked good, it smelled good, and people were like, "Okay, then let's try it." Um, but after only about a year, 2, 3 years, we
Yeah.
knew that it didn't work.
Yeah.
But because politics entered education, um, and when it entered education, that's when that swing, it
Yeah.
just moved and it just took on a life of its own. And we started seeing whole language in what, 2/3 of
Yeah.
the school districts across this country. And we knew there was no stats to tell us that it worked. In fact, California was one of the first states that said, hey, this isn't working. We went from the top to the bottom,
Yeah.
and we attribute it to reading um this reading program, and they bailed out, but the rest of us didn't. And
Mhm.
that meant that we had thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of students who could not read. And when I say that, it saddens me because failure is there's money in failure,
Yeah.
and education is a big business.
It is a
And
huge business.
those reading wars, it profited a lot of the programs that were created, and it did not benefit our students.
Yeah. And that takes us into why we are here today. And I love before we came on air, you were clear in that this interview is not only about a book, it's about your movement. So tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself and about this movement that you are spearheading, you're fanning this flame, if you will, um, and just walk us through that.
Yeah, so I was doing my work, my dissertation work, and I uncovered a lot. When you're doing your dissertation work, you read a lot, you uncover a lot, and most of that stuff can't be placed in your dissertation.
Mhm.
So I was left with a whole lot of stuff in my brain, and I said, wait, I need a way to get it out. I need a way to share this information just with my staff. That was it, to share it with my staff. And so I did some brain dumping, and then I showed it to some friends, and immediately they would say, "Well, what's the title of the book?" And I'm like, "Stop playing. I just need
We're
this.
just
Help
dumping.
me." And they kept saying, "What's the title of your book?" And then, long story short, the book that wasn't supposed to be a book suddenly became a book.
Yeah.
And because I could not hold, as a social change agent, as a person of color, I could not sit on the information that I had, while my community, while my Black and Brown children are suffering and struggling. And so we made a decision to just put it out there,
Yeah.
and not just put it out there trying to garner sales,
Yeah.
but to put it out there to push a movement that this doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. We are responsible for the trajectory of our communities. And we can't just sit back in any community. We cannot just sit back and allow things to barrel down the wrong way when it takes so little to change the movement and the trajectory of anything, right? Like a pebble can cause any large thing to change if it's positioned right. So let's dig into just a little bit of your newest release, the book that wasn't to be a book. It Takes a Village to Raise a Reader. It's one with extremely long book titles. I definitely appreciate your title. I love it.
Thank you.
It is. Your book is a call to arms, plain and simple. But it's also a call to heart. What moment or realization inspired you to pursue publishing your book?
Wow. I struggled to read. It wasn't until I had a teacher early on that realized that. And I didn't like school. I could not do maths. I did not like math class. Um, but this teacher took an interest in me over a summer. And I thought I was helping the teacher clean the classroom and do the blackboards. But she had me and about 4 or 5 other students. And we thought we were helping the teacher prepare for
Uh-huh.
the next year. Little did we know that she was actually um, tutoring us, knowing that she was going to have us the next year. So she
Oh,
had to do some legwork.
yeah.
She had to do some legwork and knew that we were struggling. And that year, that summer, was such an eye-opening for me, that in just that amount of time, I was able to grasp on a little bit. But it wasn't until the next year that she got me on a level for reading, and then it took off from there. And so I don't know what I would have been or where I would have been had it not been for her. Had it not
Wow.
been for my mom obviously saying yes without me knowing,
Mhm.
had it not been for the two of them conspiring, I don't know where I would be. And so I don't want that for other people. And so when
Yeah.
I saw these statistics in my research, and I was like, no, 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 no. There is a will, there is a way, and I need to show it. I need to tell it. And it needs to come from somebody of color because we do have the stories out there
Yeah.
about how to produce proficient readers, but not too many people look like me.
Mhm.
And so I need the community
Yeah.
to trust me with this information that I'm sharing, that it's solid, that it's
Mhm.
solid.
Have you had an opportunity to meet again with the teacher that lit that fire for you? Is she still around? Does she know the amazing educator, movement leader that you turned out to be?
She passed away, but when I was at LSU, when I came home, obviously during the breaks or whatever, I went around and she remembered me.
Uh-huh.
But she remembered me for the athletic side of me. And then she remembered that summer. And she didn't remember right away because I did not know at the time. She did that all every summer with groups of students.
Oh,
So I was wondering, I was like, mm. But then I realized, yeah, I was one of a number of students that she touched.
yeah,
And so yeah, but she did remember, and I was able to say thank you
yeah,
to her, even though I had not graduated yet. But just to be on a college campus after struggling to read early on,
yeah.
to me, was an accomplishment, and I needed to thank her for it.
Thank you for pointing out the importance of educators who really see the child beneath the learning and highlighting the role that parents play in terms of partnering with educators and not seeing them as adversaries, and understanding that, aha, it takes a village. Let's talk about the importance of creating literacy ecosystems. What does that look like in real terms at home, in classrooms, and across communities?
Yes, great question. At home, we should see lots of books, different types of genres. We should see words, a print-rich environment. We should see all kinds of literature and all kinds of print-rich um, activities, wall hangings, and displays that will just open up a child's imagination and creativity. From the time you bring the baby home
Mhm.
until the time they walk out the door, it should be something that reflects your joy, your priority as far as literacy is concerned. We need to hear singing,
Yeah.
we need to hear nursery rhymes. We need to see playing games. We
Yes.
need to see a conversation back and forth. We need to hear people talking about what's happening in the world,
Mhm.
what's happening at school, what's happening in your community. Because again, building language, building vocabulary, all of those things are prerequisites for reading. And so we should
Absolutely.
hear that. We should see it. We should feel it, not only in the home, but we should see it in schools. We should see schools that are in the younger grades and the lower grades. We should see phonics instruction explicitly and systematically.
Yeah.
We should see different. Um, we should see, and I want to say this, positively, we should see books that reflect the students and where
Yes.
they come from, because students need to see themselves around the
Mhm.
classroom, like that they belong
Yeah.
in that classroom. And we should see teachers excited. We should hear talking, not catching a bubble. We should hear students having conversations, teachers having conversations, and building relationships with students. And in our communities, we should see um, we should see activities where students can get together at the library and
Mhm.
have story night, or have debates, or have poetry contests, or nights. And we should see churches opening up their buildings for literary circles, or for families to get together with young children to so that we can educate them on how to build proficient readers. We should see the communities coming together and offering field trips for our students who may not can afford it, going
Yeah.
to the zoo, the museums. So everybody, our pediatricians should be talking about how the brain develops and
Yes.
what we need to make sure that students have a brain that has the capacity to learn to read. So
Yes.
it takes everybody, and that's what we need to see when we talk about literacy. It's a village. It takes a village to do that.
Wow, that was a master class in itself and so much good information. I hate to even move on from it because I could talk about you're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. I love it. The phrase "it takes a village" is powerful. How do you define the modern village when it comes to raising strong, joyful readers?
So the village for me is the adults that are around children, not just the family members, but caregivers
Mhm.
when they have to go to, a child care facility. But the infant care, the toddlers, the caregivers, the grandfamilies, the grandparents, the older siblings. Um, the school system itself, our legislators, and I know when people say, well, why the legislators? Because sometimes we need them. We need
Yes.
them to pass bills. We need them to act and make sure that our students are on that road
Mhm.
to reading proficiency. We need colleges and universities. And I know that that may sound a little like, okay, what are they doing? Well, teachers can't teach what they don't know. And so
Correct.
the teacher prep programs, we have to make sure that our colleges and universities are preparing teachers for this work.
Yes.
So it's about nutrition and making sure that our grocery stores and our bodegas and our neighborhood delis and
Yeah.
and corner stores, that they are equipping our families with fresh produce
Yes.
and not so much of the canned food
Hmm.
and the processed food, because that also has an impact on the brain, on the developing child, which again is the foundational work that we need to build proficient readers. And so it takes everyone to look after our children.
Mm. Yes, so good. So much focus today is on testing and benchmarks. We talked about that a little bit earlier in our intermissions segment. How do we bring joy back into reading, especially for our reluctant or struggling readers?
Yeah. That's a good question, and it's something that we all struggle with, school districts and communities and parents, which is why I say the joy for reading has to start at zero. It has to start when our children are babies, and they will grow into loving it.
In
But for those,
vitro.
yes, for those children who are struggling, we have to find what interests them.
Yeah.
We have to stop pushing the agenda of the adults,
Hmm.
right? And we have to look at children and find out what's interesting to them. And then we have to go on a mission and bring that, what's interested to them, to them,
Hmm.
and then start from there. Okay, they don't like reading. Okay, but let's find something that they're interested in, and then let's use that
Yes.
as the catalyst for helping them get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
So we've got to meet children where they are. And that means we might have to pack away those teacher books that we know are good
Hmm.
for them, but not at this time. It's
Hmm.
not at this time. So meeting them where they are, and engaging them in activities that interest them.
Yeah.
And so if it's a podcast, right? We can still teach reading. We just
Hmm.
might have to use a podcast, right?
Yes.
Or we might have to use a current event that's happening that they are fired up about, right? And they might have to do some research. They might have to do some background work. Well, while they're doing that background work, we get the reading in. We get them. We get them. We just have to put a little sugar on it a little bit, and then we get them.
We get them. When I was in the classroom, I was a pair for several years and primarily with special education. And I had a sign over my door that said, if a child can't learn the way we teach, we had
Mm,
better teach the way a child could learn. And when the children walked in, immediately that signified to them, I'm not expecting you to conform to me. I am going to conform to
mm,
you. And when I tell you, Dr. B, how those children excelled in education is not my learned background, but the success rate for those students was so high that those who were educators were incised in that they accused multiples, of which some that I would have called a friend before that, accused me of cheating and giving the children the answers in
mm,
advance or the questions in advance of the test. And so all of my children were made to retest. And I told them to keep them from becoming despondent. I said, there are individuals who can't wrap their adult brains around your success. So this is what I want you to do. We're going to thank them for noticing your improvement. Now we're going to leave them in your dust. What they saw before, now give them something else to look at. And I started singing a song. Let's give them something to talk about. We're
yes,
going to give them something to talk about.
yes.
Those babies outperformed
Mm,
even what I thought they could do. And so when they come running in with their test scores, woo-hoo, it was a celebration.
yes,
And that was the beginning for me in understanding that not everyone in the circle of education really wants to see all children succeed. That's scary.
that is scary.
That's really scary.
That is
So,
scary.
when we were talking earlier about what that ecosystem looks like, it's important for parents, all parents, to understand that you are the primary educator for your child and to not leave that to someone else. That teacher, that librarian, that social worker, they're partners with you, but you're first. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. And in my book, I dedicate a portion of it about adults and their world views,
Mhm.
right? When you go into teaching, you bring everything with you, right?
Yes.
You don't leave stuff behind. You bring everything about you, your experiences, your truths, your values, your morals. You bring everything with you. And why is that important? It's important because that those people who are in front of your children and their worldviews, they dictate what your child is going to learn, how
Yeah.
they're going to learn it, the assignments, whether your child is going to be seen in that classroom, understood in that classroom, accepted in that classroom. All of that is based on the person that's in front of your children.
Yeah.
We've got to understand that those people who are in front of your children, you've got to work with them.
With.
You've got to be in lockstep with them. You've
Yes.
got to know them. You've got to know what they're teaching, what they're exposing your children to. And you might have to have a conversation, especially for educators who are have a different cultural background
Yeah.
than the students that they're teaching. If they're not open to being accepting to all students and
Mhm.
making sure that students are seen, valued, appreciated, understood, and to build their self-esteem and their self-concept, then there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
There's going to be a problem.
Yeah. And I know we alluded to it earlier that there are so many systems in place. And I know this is a conversation for a whole different show, and I would love to have you come back. But the realization is that there are systems in place in our country that profit and benefit from our children who don't excel. And so just knowing that there are lions in wait, wolves, if you will, that are banking on the failure of your child so that they can profit gains should be incentive enough to know that you're not going to let your child become part of that statistic. Now, you have worn so many hats: educator, leader, advocate. How has your experience inside the systems shaped the practical tools you share in your book?
So everything that's in my book, um, I have either done myself as a teacher, or I have shared with as a supervisor or principal. I've seen it happen. I've seen it in classrooms. I've worked with families, and so we know that it can happen. It is possible, and so my practical experience in my book, there's sections in it for practically speaking. And so I add personal and professional commentary to help the audience understand the content. And so I give
Yeah,
personal experiences. So you can see that this can happen. This isn't something that's way out in left field. This can happen. I've done it.
yeah.
I've done it. I've seen it done. And so I know that it can be done. So my professional experience shaped, and my personal experience shaped the practical experiences that I'm sharing in the book.
Who would you say is your ideal customer with a book such as It Takes a Village to Raise a Reader?
I would say parents.
Mm,
I would say parents. And then I would say educators, or community, um, our community, and then I would say educators. The reason why I put parents first is because so much of what happens to children, and so much of what we need the parents to understand, and their role in shaping a child to become a proficient reader happens before they turn 5.
Oh.
When a child enters kindergarten, they enter with a resume. That
Mm-hmm.
resume is all the experiences that that child has been exposed to, good, bad, and indifferent. All of those experiences form that resume. And when that child walks into a kindergarten classroom, that resume is going to dictate whether reading is going to be a challenge or not. And
Wow.
so, if we can get that part straight, if we can get that part straight, then there is hope, because right now we are seeing a movement of more school districts in the United States moving toward developmentally appropriate and research based reading instruction.
Mhm.
So then we get that in place with the K-3, and we get the colleges and the universities to teach evidence-based reading, and
Yes.
our legislators to put money into that to train everybody. We're on a road. We're on a better road.
Yeah.
But first, we got to get to the families, because
Got to
much
get
of
to the
what
families.
happens before 5.
Yes. That is so powerful. Where are the listeners able to engage with you and learn more about your movement and what you are doing?
So my website has everything, all of my social handles. It's Dr. Jackie, Jackie, Blanton, Blanton.com. That's drjackieblanton.com. Just welcome to visit my website. It has blogs, it has articles, it has podcast, replays and snippets, and it has a lot of information that I think the viewers would appreciate. And again, it has my social media handles and it has contact information. So that would be the first place I think that your viewers would be able to get to know me a little bit more.
Yes. Now we've come to the part of our show that I call One for the Road. And I really want to make sure that all of our questions that we just had are included in the overall interview. So I'm going to limit my One to the Road segment to maybe 2 or 3 questions because the information that you just shared was so profound. So let's go with this. What's your all-time favorite children's book to read aloud? And yes, voices are encouraged.
um, I love you forever. That is, I have boys, and I used to read that all the time, every night, for years and years and years. And my adult sons, when they leave or when we leave, when we depart, they'll say, I love you forever. And I'll say, I love
I
you
like you
always.
forever.
That's
I
my
love
all-time
that.
favorite.
I love that book so much. My daughters have bought me copies as Christmas presents. I mean, I've got multiple copies. I was looking because I have a copy up here.
Yeah,
I
I
have a
have one
copy.
right here.
Listen, I've got a copy in the main living room, in the secondary living room. I've got one in the family room. I've got one in the bedroom. Listen,
It's my favorite.
I love that book. Oh my gosh. Okay. We just shared a moment. Okay. Finish this sentence. The most powerful thing an adult can say to a child about reading is blank.
It opens up the door to experiences and opportunities that you don't even know about.
Wow, that is so true. It take in a book, we can go anywhere and be anyone and experience anything. I've said on multiple interviews that as a teenager, reading literally saved my life.
Mm.
And so I think for anyone that has been in that space where finding a book that spoke to you and literally changed your perception of life,
Mm.
right? Understands that. And I've been really clear about how reading, and that's a very literal statement, saved my life.
Yeah.
Last question, and Piper has decided, come on up. Piper has decided to join us and she just won't let us
Okay.
be great. You've created you're creating a time capsule for future readers. What 3 things go into it and why?
A time capsule
For
for
future readers.
future readers, I would say one, you have to, okay, so I'm gonna say this. You have to put one of the classics, a classic. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what classic it is,
Yeah.
right? That speaks to you. We got to have a classic in there.
Yeah.
We have to have the Bible in there. I just believe that we all have to have some type of a moral compass,
Yes.
whether it's your Bible, whether it's your Torah, whatever
The
it is.
Quran, whatever that faith
Right, the
is.
Quran, whatever it is, you have to have that in there. And then you have to have a funny book
Yes.
because we need to laugh, right? We need to laugh sometimes to keep from crying, and sometimes, laughter just has a way of just making everything just feel different.
Yeah.
So I just think that we need to have a classic because that grounds us. The
Mhm.
classics grounds us, and then some type of a book that would guide our spirituality,
Yeah.
and then something that's funny to say that we can't always take ourselves so
Too
seriously.
seriously. Yes. And that question, I do my questions so well in advance. And I love that question. And I think I would add a fourth. I would add blank paper and a pencil so that
Mm,
the person can write their own story,
I
so
love
that
it.
then they can pass that forward. So,
Love it. Love it.
oh, Dr. Blanton, this has been so much fun. I think I could talk to
Yes.
you for hours.
Oh, this was delightful. I love this. This is fun.
Yay! Woohoo! Well, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome.
And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.